Hello, Guitar Smarts fans. Before you check out this podcast, I want to make you aware of a cool new place where you can interact with other Guitar Smarts listeners. It's a Facebook group called the Guitar Geek Hangout. That's where we hang out and talk about all things guitar. So, if you like the Guitar Smarts podcast, come and chat with Kieran and myself over in the Guitar Geek Hangout on Facebook. Maybe check out some pre-podcast clips and even get involved in asking and answering lots of questions from the other page dwellers. Hope to see you there.
You'll still need to refresh yourself every now and again just to make sure it's there, especially as you get older.
Absolutely.
Especially as you get older. When I was younger, these things just stuck in my head. I was like a flipping walking jukebox. Yeah. It was amazing. I took it for granted so much, man. You rock up to parties and people would be like, do you know this song? And you'd be like, yeah, I think I played that once. Yeah. And you'd go through your mental Rolodex and bang, it was just there.
Yeah. Greetings and welcome back to the Guitar Smarts podcast. Hope you're keeping safe and well. This week we are talking about learning songs for gigs. What is the best way to learn a song in readiness for a gig that you have? Now, both of us are well versed in depping for other guitarists and having to quickly learn someone else's set of songs. But what have we learned over the years about the process and how do we get the most out of the short amount of time we have to do the work? That's this week's topic. Now, before I get into the usual housekeeping, I want to ask you a favour. The Guitar Smarts podcast would really like to know from you who you would like to hear us interview. We are planning some interviews for the show and would love for our listeners to nominate someone for an interview. The best way to let us know is to go to our Instagram page and comment on the release post for this episode and tag the person you would like us to interview, and we'll take it from there. Housekeeping, remember to like and subscribe to this podcast on your preferred podcast app. Why? Because you'll get alerts when a new podcast is released, and that means you won't miss another show. And if you liked and subscribed because you like the show and you listen to us regularly, then use the links in the description of this show to leave us a rating or a review. This is the best way to support us, and it really helps to grow. Lastly, there are other links in our description to our social media pages, links to our Buy Me a Coffee page if you do feel generous. Come and see us on the social pages and we'll be happy to see you there. That's about enough from me. Let's get to it. Hey, buddy, how you doing? You well?
I am good. I am very good, thank you, mate. It is a rather wet and rainy and miserable day in the UK today, but
it really is.
Hey ho, it's not going to dampen my spirits. I'm in good mood. I'm in a good mood, and
fantastic.
I've got a good week ahead of me. How's things with you?
Yeah, good. I'm all right. Feeling a lot better, on the mend. From this chesty cough I've had. Still, getting there, but I'm good.
Still been lingering. Oh, that's been a few weeks now, hasn't it?
It's been a few weeks. Yeah, I was on antibiotics like a couple of weeks ago just to get rid of the chesty part of it, and feel a lot better now. But the doctor said, the cough will probably still linger for a while, like a post-viral thing, But yeah, other than that, I'm pretty good. Work's busy. Taking on a few more gigs recently as well, like a few more dep gigs.
You have
got one coming up this Saturday.
Nice.
Which is
tell me all. Where is it?
It's in like the middle. Do you know what? It's going to be the longest day ever I've probably ever had for a gig. Actually, no, second longest. Longest was one down in Devon I did years ago, where I drove down there and did the gig and drove back all in one go. It ended up being about a 24-hour thing, the whole thing. But this one's going to be like in central London, not central, kind of actually a little bit more north of centre, kind of north of Islington kind of thing.
Okay. There's still a good couple of hours for you to get
good couple of hours for you to get to, depending on traffic. But the main thing is kind of in like a public, not a public building, but kind of like like in London, there's lots of parks that are kind of little green areas with like houses in and stuff like that. And it's in one of those, and you can only access it between 12 and 2. So we've got to be in and loaded in by 2 o'clock, which means depending on traffic, I've really got to leave about 10 in the morning, for a gig that the first set starts at 9 p.m.
Oh, man.
Exactly. And cars are only allowed back onto the venue to do the loadout after midnight. So it's going to be a long day of...
Oh, it is?
Yeah. And also there's quite a lot of stuff for me to figure out in the set as well, because it's, there's a lot of stuff in there. But we'll get to that.
I hope they're making it worth your while, my friend.
It's also it's not unfairly paid. Yeah, it could be better, but it's not the worst pay for a gig, you know.
Good.
But
and
then another couple of gigs in the diary for the rest of the year as well. Kind of about one a month at the moment, through till about September, which is great for me. That's
good.
That's plenty for me, you know. Gig a month. But what about yourself? You've been gigging recently?
I have, yeah. I've been gigging with a couple of bands. Hot Fuzz, which is my mainstay band, and we've had a couple of gigs in the last month. We tend to do maybe one or two a month as well. So really nice level. We've done some weddings already this year, and some pub and social club stuff. And it's really coming together. They're a lovely bunch of guys, and I'm really enjoying playing with them. As I've said before, it's quite a concentration gig for me because it's a 4-piece, and we're doing some not completely simple numbers. So there's a few different parts for me to try and fill in on the guitar, but I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, last gig we did, it was brilliant. A new venue for us, and it was packed. People were swinging from the chandeliers. Literally, it was that kind of night. I think it was the FA Cup final for the football as well, so everyone was out and partying anyway. So it was a good night.
Fantastic.
And then I had a gig with Damien Lodrick, the DLB.
Oh yeah, of course.
Done a couple of gigs with him now this year, and we had one up in Swindon, which was the overnight stay one, where you don't get gigs like this that often, where they put us up in a lovely hotel, separate rooms each. Yeah, wow. Fed and watered, breakfast the next morning, back at the venue where they cooked us a full-on breakfast, and free drinks all night.
Oh dear.
That was it. And we got paid. It almost felt like the best job in the world, really.
Dangerous, almost, actually. Cool. So busy times.
Yeah.
So actually, it's kind of this week we're trying to talk about something which is key to doing these gigs right. Which is I've taken on some more depth gigs. You're gigging with a couple of bands. You're doing a bit of stuff for Damien for your own band, and something which I guess we all have to try and cope with at some point is learning new songs, learning a new set, or learning new tracks, or how do we think about approaching learning the guitar part for a new song. And man, this has been on our schedule to talk about for a little while, and it's like perfect timing for me because, like I said earlier on, this depth gig I've got on Saturday, this is the first one in a while where there's some really I feel like I'm being quite challenged. There's probably a couple of songs I'm worried about actually that I'm not sure I'll get down in time. But the approach to learning songs for a gig, how do you kind of speed that up? How do you make sure you learn a song quickly, you learn it well? How do you get it into your... something I always say to myself, I don't know about you, is I want the song to be in my fingers, not in my head. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to have to be thinking about the music all the time. I want to be able to feel like I've got the freedom to play and enjoy playing rather than thinking too much. And it's got to be in your fingers rather than in your head. How do you quickly get to that point from it being an unknown song, or maybe a known song that you've never gigged before and you don't know how to play it, to being at that point? And that's what we want to talk about today, is our experience in learning songs, how we tend to approach learning something new from the professional point of being able to then go away and perform it, and not just being able to kind of jam it at home or anything like that, or play along with it. Yeah,
absolutely. So how long have you had, or how long will you have to learn all these songs for this upcoming gig? How much notice have you had?
I've just had about a week, right. So this is our good friend, Mr. Rory Harvey. It's depping for him, so in a wedding band in North London, and for the most part the set is familiar, and there's some stuff which is going to be to backing tracks, and there's some stuff which I've never played before, some stuff which I've never gigged before but I know the songs, some stuff which I don't know at all, so the short notice thing isn't too much of a problem, because like I said, it's kind of, some stuff is just a case of refamiliarizing it, and some stuff is literally having to kind of do this thing from scratch, which is, I guess, what we're talking about now, right? I mean, how do you take what's the sensible approach to learning stuff? And my thought is always that kind of, have you heard the phrase before, slow is smooth, smooth is fast?
Slow is smooth, smooth is fast.
Yeah.
No.
You never heard, so that's
No,
I don't actually know who the originator of that. It might even be like a boxing thing. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, or something like that. I don't know, but that's kind of my approach to it. If you want to learn something quickly, you need to learn it quickly. You should still approach it slowly, because of that thing of slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And the reason, the number one reason is if you try and pick up the guitar too soon, I think when you're trying to learn a song, you can very quickly introduce mistakes or the wrong thing into the learning process of what you're doing. You know what I mean? So if you're trying to learn a particular melody or a chord shape or something or a tuning and you haven't really listened to it properly and internalized something, then you might jam a particular way of doing it too soon, and then that actually kind of stays in your head a little bit, and you have to...
That becomes the version, right?
That's right. You start having to tackle a certain amount of unlearning within the process of learning the song. So approaching things slowly, I think, is really important. So like task number one for me would always be put the guitar away and sit down with pen and paper and listen to the song, and I'd write out the arrangement. And by that, I mean, I want to know the order of sections, intro, how many bars. I want to get an idea for the tempo. I want to write down information. I want to get to know the music first without it being in the context of a guitarist. I just want to become familiar with the song, right? So it's kind of, is there an intro? How many bars is the intro? Is there a verse, pre-chorus, chorus, verse, pre-chorus, chorus? Get the arrangement written down and start to learn the arrangement. So at any point in the song, you know what the next part of the song is.
Exactly.
And that's the first thing I would do. What about you? What's your initial kind of approach if you're learning a song?
So this is about. I think that's probably the second, or maybe even third thing I do. And we're each going to have different approaches to this, right? And there is no right and wrong way. This is just something that I've found, having done a lot of depth gigs and knowing my own limitations. So it's going to be quite an interesting conversation today, because you've obviously got a grounded musical education and theory knowledge and an ability to be able to work through a song in a more technical, theory-based way than I would. So I've had to build different ways of trying to learn songs more quickly without having that deep-rooted theory knowledge to fall back on and immediately understand the chord progression straight away, or the kind of, I don't know, just the structure of the song, because everything I'm doing is by ear and with a guitar in hand. But the first thing that I do is I go into my diary and I look how much time I've got right before the rehearsal, if we're lucky enough to have a rehearsal before that gig, or before the gig itself if I'm just doing a depth gig, and I deliberately allow myself and block out some time so that I know I've got some time set, because I'm my own worst enemy in this instance. What I'll do is, especially when it's a bit of a daunting task, I'll tend to put it off and then let myself work under pressure, but then the song invariably doesn't get into my fingers in the way that you talked about earlier. It just becomes a very short-term kind of piece of learning. So the first thing I do is look through my diary and go, right, the gig is this date, or the first rehearsal is this date for this band. I need to make sure that I have blocked out 1 or 2 afternoons or whatever's appropriate for the songs, based on if I know them already in those keys or if I don't know them at all, and make sure that I've got some dedicated time set aside. Because for me, just trying to pick up the guitar ad hoc and learn a song here, learn a song there, it just doesn't work. I need to have some time booked out. So that's just like a logistical thing. And then the second thing that I do is, it is linked exactly to what you said, but before I even pick up a guitar or even take a pen and paper and start to frame out the arrangement, if I want to get into that level of detail, I create the playlist on Spotify. And then I also make a point of just listening to those songs in the car, or quite often what I've been doing, which I find works really well for me because it removes other distractions, is I listen to them in bed. So instead of staying up late that night and watching TV or whatever, I'll take myself off to bed an hour or so earlier, and I'll just lie in bed with headphones on and listen to the songs and just try and get that arrangement in my head before I've even picked up a guitar or even started to sketch it out, just so I can familiarize myself with the arrangement. And what I've often found doing it like that is it's relaxed me a lot more than when I try to learn a song or a few songs in a rush for a gig, and I'm sat down here in my little studio with a guitar in hand, with a pen and paper, with the computer on and a tab sheet or the song, trying to figure it out. That to me becomes a bit more of a stressful environment, because I'm trying to listen, I'm trying to write, and then I'm trying to play, and I'm trying to apply it all without fully having the overall song structure. Yeah. So just buying some time to listen to that song in advance and go, okay, verse, chorus, bridge, outro, whatever, and then that just helps me. So I've found that quite a useful technique before even picking up a guitar.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt this fascinating conversation, but if you've made it this far, then maybe you should like or subscribe to the Guitar Smarts podcast. Stop it here, go away and do it, and then come straight back to the show. Hey, welcome back. I think that's the worst mistake we can make, is to pick the guitar up too soon and just try and randomly kind of jam along with things, try and follow it as you're listening to it. I don't think that's productive. I think there's some benefit to doing that as a separate exercise for separate reasons, to kind of, I'd say if you're kind of trying to improve your improvisation skills, then stick Spotify on shuffle or whatever of anything, and just try and jam over anything that comes up, because you can probably find that's a good exercise to kind of learn to quickly, improve your improvisation skills.
Surprise yourself
with things, see what you can do. It's almost like being a session musician, right?
Exactly.
Like pretend to be a session guy. Well, I'm going to listen to this, it needs a guitar part. What can I add to it? Kind of thing. That is kind of fun.
I thought I was the only one that did that kind of mental thing.
I know, all the time.
You got an hour, you get called into the studio.
Yeah,
what would you do?
What would Steve Lukather do,
Blames.
What would he do on this particular song? But no, that is not what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to internalize a song so that, like you said, you want to be so familiar with the music that when you do eventually say, right, I'm ready to pick up the instrument and learn this, you feel comfortable with the music enough to be able to approach learning it from scratch. And, I agree with you, listening to it first before you kind of sit down. I like going straight to the, not having the guitar, but listening to it and kind of mapping it out, so that I can create it's almost like you want to, for me, I want to create an image of the song, from left to right, from start to finish. This is the order of the things that are happening in the song, and that helps to reinforce not just the arrangement, but, my familiarity with the song. And eventually you want to be, singing along to it and knowing what's going on and kind of feeling just ultimately as comfortable as you possibly can before you're picking up, the guitar.
It's good advice, isn't it? It sounds almost a bit counterintuitive, doesn't it? It sounds like this is going to be a longer way to learn the song more properly. More properly? That's really bad grammar. But a more thorough way of learning the song. But it sounds like that requires a lot more time. But actually what you're describing, and from my own personal experience, by investing that little bit of time, you actually learn the song quicker.
Yeah. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That's the
there you go.
That's the thing.
It makes sense. It's true though, right? It's true.
It is true.
Because I've sat down and jammed through songs and quickly done it and thought, I know this song. I've heard it a million times. I just haven't played it on guitar before, but that's fine. I just need to figure out what the chords are and the verse and the chorus, and there's a solo there, fine. You get along to play it in a band setting and you realize you don't know the song as well as you think you do, or as well as you had in your mind's eye, and there's little bits here that catch you out, and then all of a sudden you're on the back foot in a playing situation because you've missed a cue or you've missed a change, and then you start to forget the chords that are coming because you've got yourself lost in it. And actually, it's not that you've necessarily forgotten the guitar parts or the chords, it's just that you've lost yourself in the arrangement and you can't figure out where to come back in. And so actually having the arrangement of the song in your head more robustly allows you to memorize the chords more quickly.
For sure.
The parts. And that's taken me, it sounds obvious, but it's taken me a while to figure that out, because oftentimes what I used to do is just, as I said, jam through it, have the set list, especially if it was a band that I was depping for just like maybe 1 gig or 2 gig. Just have the set list and just write like a couple of the more complicated chord changes. I still do it sometimes, right next to the song on the set list. So little aid memoirs. But in the heat of a gig, you can't really see the set list that clearly on the floor, and you don't want to be relying on those notes on a set list that you've scribbled, because it's not the same situation as sitting at home where you just can kind of look at that sheet in front of you. It's it's different, right? And so you've got to have it in your head.
Completely, you got to have it in your head for sure. You got to learn it, and like you say, you don't want to be in that moment where you're thinking. We're always thinking like a bar ahead, when you're playing a song, but you don't want to lose where you are because you're worrying too much about what's coming next and thinking, oh no, what is the next? What is that middle eight section again? What's the first thing? I always think this, like if I'm doing things like, I don't know if you do the song "Use Somebody" by Kings of Leon, or if you ever do that.
I've done it previously, but I
mean, that song is super in my fingers, right? It's just in it's like a C,
Great
C
song.
over E, F, and then it goes A, and then like C over E and F, A minor. It's a super simple versing, but the middle section is always D major and F sharp minor going round and round. There's kind of like this modulation up a tone to D major, and I always just before that happens, I'm always like, is it D major or is it F sharp minor first? I can't remember, and I always go for the D, and it's always D. It's fine. It's never a problem. But it's like those little moments when you're playing, where you just for a second you're detached from what you're physically doing because you're thinking a little bit too much about what's ahead. The only reason you're doing that is because you've not got to the point in the familiarity with the song or with what you're playing or having fully learned it that you have to kind of reach in and ask the question, in your mind, what is it again that's next? I think it's this. You might, if you really knew it, you wouldn't have a problem asking the question. But I guess that is supported by playing things regularly as well, because you can forget things over time.
You can. Like, I've got a gig coming up on Saturday, and it's for my mainstay band, but it's been 3 weeks since our last gig, and already I'm thinking, because I've done another gig in between for a different band with a similar set list, but all in different keys. I'm kind of like, right, okay, which key are we doing it in again? And just trying to revert back to how I played it. So I even this week, I'm going to set aside a couple of hours just to go through the set, even though I know it. But, I just don't want to have any of those kind of moments. I want to be as comfortable as I was at the last gig, and keep building each gig with, the level of comfort and familiarity, all of those different changes. But So I guess what I'm trying to say is once you've learned it, as you're describing with the arrangements, all of that kind of stuff, you'll still need to refresh yourself every now and again just to make sure it's there, especially as you get older.
Absolutely.
Especially as you get older. When I was younger, these things just stuck in my head. I was like a flipping walking jukebox. It was amazing. I took it for granted so much, man. You rock up to parties and people would be like, "Do you know this song?" And you'd be like, "Yeah, I think I played that once." And you go through your mental Rolodex and bang, it was just there.
Yeah.
Like people ask me now, I'm just like, if it's not for the upcoming gig in a couple of days' time, it's not there anymore, my friend. It's gone. I'll have to relearn it.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's an age thing. But you described something else when you were just talking about that Kings of Leon song, which I think is a really good point as well, which is once you've got that arrangement and once you've started to apply it then and get into the guitar, it's learning things in sections so that because the way you just described really nicely as an example of, right, this is the verse structure, it's this, and this, but I know there's this kind of middle eight or whatever that has this, and you had it in your head, right, already, but you've learned those sections, so
that's
you know that you can plug and play those sections and you've got the arrangement in your head. So that I think is a really nice tip that you've just described there, is breaking it down into those memorable sections. It's key, right?
Yeah, no, I'll tell you why I think that's so important. I think there's two reasons for me why I want to map out the arrangement first, is because I want to see all those different chunks, all those verse. I can hear a verse part and a chorus part and a pre-chorus and things like that. And you kind of imagine what things go together and what things, you can start to build, a series of parts that you need to learn. So then I'm kind of thinking, okay, so there's an 8-bar chunk there I need to learn. That's my verse, And the reason that's important is because it helps to obviously separate out the learning process into chunks that are manageable as well.
That's it.
That's the obvious reason I think why it's good to do that, because now I'm not thinking I'm learning a song. Now I'm thinking I'm just learning these 8 bars. What's the rhythm to these 8 bars? What's the tone that I need to have? What's the kind of playing feel? What's the all these different questions that familiarize yourself with that. But the other reason why that's important is because on the night, if your musical director in the band that you're in, because somebody's running the band, you're depping, if they say, hey, just by the way, that song we asked you to learn, we have a different arrangement for that. We drop the verse and we add an extra chorus in. You can, you're already thinking in these different chunks, right? Because that's how you've learned.
That's it.
So it becomes really easy for you to adapt to an alternate arrangement of something, because you can quickly recall these different chunks. Like if somebody says, let's do another chorus, you don't have to go, oh, that's not the arrangement that I've learned. My fingers are ready to go to the chorus. You're just thinking, oh, great, let's just carry on. You can start thinking in terms of these different chunks, and it becomes easy then for you to adapt to an alternate arrangement requirement on the night. It's kind of like when the singer does the whole thing, let's keep going, spinning the finger around in the air, keep going, let's add another couple of choruses. It should be easy for you to do that if they want to add another verse. That's why it's so important, I think, to learn it in those chunks.
I call them kind of like plug and play chunks. Exactly. Because of that. Exactly because of how you've described. If you just learn the if you learn the arrangement as per the record, which everyone tells you, oh we do it per the record, and then you get along and you realise quite quickly they don't do it per the record because of whatever. No one does it per the record. Everyone says they do, but of course they don't for whatever reasons. So you learn the arrangement, you've got the basic grounding of the thing, but have these plug and play chunks so you can exactly do what you've described. You can adapt quickly if you get there and you realise they're not doing it as per the record, or as often happens on the night, the singer or the band just want to keep it going, and because people are dancing and you've got to Nice. All right, cool. There's some good tips there already. So have we picked up a guitar yet? We kind of are picking up a guitar now. We're starting to learn chunks of it, right? And we've divided and we've listened to the song. We've booked off some time to do it properly. We've found whatever way works to listen to the song. Either sit down with a pen and pad as you've described, or sit in bed and listen to it, or drive around, listen to it. We've divided up and conquered the song in various chunks, plug and play little parts. Where do we go next? Because this is about speed and how quickly we can get it into our heads, and that's different for everyone, right? But I don't know, where do you go next? So is it ear? Is it tab? Is it YouTube videos? Is it none of the above?
I think it's all of the above. I've got to be honest. I've learned songs in so many different ways for gigs. I've learned songs whilst driving to gigs because I've stuck a YouTube video on my phone in the holster,
really,
and listen to someone talking about the song. So the first section is these chords. I'm thinking, okay, and then I go and listen to it. I think, that sounds right. You can hear those intervals. And then by the time I've got to the gig, I'm like, well, okay, I kind of feel like I know what I'm doing, but only if it's something like, I think that was Hey Jude, actually.
Okay.
And a simpler song, do you know what I mean? It's kind of, everyone knows Hey Jude. I felt like I knew it well enough. I just needed to get used to the arrangement, which I did by just listening to the song over and over on the way to the gigs. It was a couple of hours drive. And then I was kind of like, I'm a bit unfamiliar with some of the chord changes. I can't quite figure it out just by listening. And I like to do that more than anything, if I'm honest. I like to listen and try and use my ear training, that I've done over time to kind of listen to the intervals and kind of decide, okay, I think I know what this is. This sounds like a 6-1 1, 4, 5, and if you're thinking about a major key, I like to try and figure things out that way. But I think all of the above, like you said, do you refer to tab? I think anything that helps you and your learning style is preferable. And anything that helps you avoid, the biggest thing for me is avoiding, like I said earlier on, introducing mistakes into what you're playing, because then you have to do the work to unlearn the wrong thing. Yeah. That's so important. There's nothing worse than, picking up a little, trying to figure out a way of doing something. You kind of get it wrong. You kind of approximate something, to kind of get yourself through it. And then you figure out that that's not right. I have to learn it better, a different way. That's hard work. It's harder to unlearn and relearn something than it is to learn it correctly the first time. So my approach would be to, now I've listened, I should automatically now start having thoughts about what the chords are. I just need to locate the key, the general key that it's in, and I can start finding the right chords and things like that. And then this is when I would start writing it out. I'd start writing out, a chart, with the bars in. I'd start writing down what the right chords are. And then it's a case of playing along, not necessarily playing exactly the right guitar part, but just reaffirming that I know I'm following the right structure of chord patterns, if you like. Trying to think of an example of something like, let's say, for example, you're learning Superstition. Okay. Superstition, obviously there's no real chord change through the verse. It's a riff on E. But let's say you're coming up to that middle section, and you want to know, where does that chord, it goes to another chord and then it goes up and down and down and down. So when you're ear training, you should be able to hear that's going up to a certain degree in the scale, and then you should be able to hear that it's kind of moving around chromatically. So there's things where I would like that. If I was learning Superstition for the first time, what I'd be thinking there is I think it's gone up from the E. If I'm doing Superstition in E, it's gone up. I think it's gone up a fifth. So I'm going to go to the B, and then I can hear this chromatic thing happening. So it must be going B, C, B flat, A kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? If I try and think about things like that, I'm trying to follow things intervallically rather than thinking about whether it's B7 or B minor or anything. I'm just thinking about the root note and the intervallic movement. So that's the next thing for me. If I'm trying to figure out what the chords are, I'm not thinking about the chord qualities, whether it's augmented or all that stuff. I'm just thinking about the root note and the movement through those different roots. And that's the next step for me.
Yeah, same, almost identical, without the level of theoretical grounding and knowledge. So I'm not necessarily thinking about it in terms of well-known and defined chord progressions, or it sounds like it's gone up a fifth or whatever. But I am listening rather, because I always challenge myself to do it by ear first of all, and listen relative to where I am on the neck and visualize where I am on the neck, because a lot of how I learn songs is, yes, by the listening part of it, but I can see where my hands go across the fingerboard, and that visual thing. I can do it now. I don't even have to close my eyes for various songs. I can see the fingerboard, and I can see how my fingers move and how that relates to the intervals that I'm hearing in the song. And that's just kind of how I memorize stuff. So I won't be able to memorize it in terms of theoretical chord progressions and things like that. But that's when I'm trying to learn a song. That's a similar approach that I'm using to you, which is where are the roots of all those changes, and what do they look like, and how can I memorize how that looks and sounds, and then go back and add in the little embellishments, etc. But then get to a point where I have to challenge myself and say, is any of that not quite right? And that I need to go back and check it, right? Because that's where the limitations will be. There's definitely a pride and an accomplishment thing of being able to do it by ear. And I think it goes in better and stays better when you figured it out and really listened and visualized the fingerboard so that goes in. It just, for some reason, before I even take pen to paper or whatever to revisit it the next day or something more quickly, I think it just sticks in your head a little bit better. And then I can keep replaying that mental film that I've taken throughout the rest of the day when I'm not actually playing, when I'm sitting, making the kids dinner or whatever. I can be, okay, let's just work through that song in my head and remember what it looks like on the fingerboard. So I think that definitely helps. But there comes a point where if it's a more complex song or it's a more tricky bit where I have to go, okay, I have to force myself to say, don't fake this bit. If that's not quite right, go and look it up now and go and figure out what that piece is. Because if you start to fake it at this point and memorize it like that, you'll always have it like that and you'll never go back and unlearn it. So, if it's 95% there, I'll go, that's fine. Yeah. That's good enough. 90%, that's good enough. But if it's kind of like 80%-ish, I'm kind of like at a point where I'm kind of thinking, okay, no, you've got it 80%. Go and really figure it out and know what it is.
That's a really good point. I think that challenging yourself is really important because you don't want to just approximate things. You do want to get things as close as possible, but sometimes there's going to be difficulties in getting the part right. And I think it's important to challenge yourself, like you said, to say, am I getting this right? No, I'm not. I need to seek some kind of other support here, whether that's downloading a tab or watching somebody play. Sometimes all I need to be able to correct something is just to see somebody play it. If I've not quite got a guitar part right, or I'm thinking this isn't working, I can kind of hear what's happening, but it's just still not quite. Sometimes it can be like a finger position thing, or something like that. You can be playing something in the 10th position, you realize that the original person's playing it in like the 5th position, and you're playing the same part, but something about that difference in finger position can change the tone of it. It can change the feel of it.
Exactly.
And then you kind of start feeling like something's not quite right.
I'm laughing because it's your nemesis song, and I must say I've managed to do all of my songs for this band, and re-challenge myself and figure out some of the more complex bits by going, okay, you almost got it spot on, but let's tweak it and make it right. And there's one song where I just had that exact experience, and it's Mr. Brightside, which is your nemesis song, right? So I listened to it and I was just like, okay, I'm gonna do that by ear. And I remember I hadn't actually gigged this song. No, that's a lie. I'd gigged it with Damien's band a few times before, but where I was just on rhythm and he was taking the main guitar parts anyway, so it was fine. But for my current band, I needed to learn it properly and all the different lead parts in it. So I sat down, did it by ear, fine. I thought this is 90% kind of there, 85, 90%, but it's still not quite right. Yeah. I've still got, okay, right, I'm going to pull up the tab, or I'm going to pull up the YouTube videos.
Well, I gig it at about 70%.
I'm perhaps being generous to myself. I pulled it up, and most of the time, right, virtually, I would say most of the time, right, when I've pulled something up and someone's done it accurate, and we'll get onto this in a bit, someone has done a proper accurate transcription of it, and I go, oh, well, that's not how I would have played it. It's not how I'm playing it, and it's not necessarily something that feels natural for me to play it in that way, because it's a different interval of, or whatever, different inversion, or whatever it is. It's just not natural for me, but I'll learn it and I'll get it, and it's fine. My fingers will get used to it, and then we'll have it, and then we've got a new piece of wizardry in the toolkit. That intro to Mr. Brightside, my fingers will not bend in that way, that high up the neck on my guitars to make it happen. Yeah. And I went round to Damien's house one night. We were just having a few drinks and dinner and stuff. And I said to him, just out of interest, we weren't playing guitar, but I said, just out of interest, how do you play the intro to Brightside? And he was like, how do you play it?
I love that he's asked you that straight back. That's so funny.
Well, because in his mind, he's like super musician god, right? So to him, he's just like, well, there is only one way to play it. So, and he knows I've been gigging it with my band. So he's just like, well, if you're not sure, how have you been playing it? So I showed him, and he went, oh. He's like, that's really, really close. I was like, but it's not right, is it? And he's like, no, it's not right. He was like, but that is damn close. And actually, the fingering that I'm using is infinitely easier. So he showed me how you should actually play it, and it was as per all the transcriptions and stuff that I'd seen online. I can't get my fingers to do it. I just can't. So I've had to resign myself that I will play it in that kind of octave position. I almost play it like with the D-shaped chord, right, in that whatever fret it's on, and I use almost like the open chord shapes, but it's getting that open top E to ring in the same way that it does.
I never get that to happen. I never get it to happen.
you know what I mean?
Terrible.
You know what I'm
Do you
doing?
remember when you first started learning guitar and it's like play a D chord and you'd be like, okay, that finger there. That's what I'm like with it. Still, there's a part in Mr. Brightside where after the first chorus, it comes into it's after the chorus. Obviously, it goes back into the riff. The last bar of the chorus, whenever I'm doing it, there's no guitar being played because I'm up there trying to get that finger there. Because it's like you're tying your hand in a little knot. You know what I mean? And I just credit to the guitarist from The Killers for coming up with that riff, but also I hate you because it's a nightmare. It's always a nightmare, and I always have other guys in the band kind of laughing at me because they know I hate it so much.
But at least you're trying to do it properly. After this, I'll send you a video of how I play it. It's not right, but I tell you what, as the last song in our set list at the end of the night,
everyone's drunk.
Everyone's drunk. It's nicely. I put a nice little bit of crunch on it, and no one's ever come up to me afterwards and gone, "I saw the fingering that you used for that intro."
Yeah, I know.
and it's 95% of it, but it's not right, is it? Yeah. Although Damien would when he comes to see that band, and he'd be right to do that.
I just love it once I get through that second verse and I don't have to play the riff anymore. Once it goes to the second chorus, because there's only like 2 choruses, isn't it? It's only a verse, chorus, really. And then it goes to the outro. And I'm like, brilliant, I don't have to play it. The rest of the song, I can just relax.
Do you know what? I hated that song. I thought it was a yobbish, overly played pub band song. But having had to learn it and the different parts in it, I really like the song now. It's not my nemesis.
I think it's got a clever guitar part. That's it. I can't stand anything else about the song. The way it just shouts through the verses and chorus, and it's just, it's a bit of a. It's not my thing. But for some reason, it hits the mark every time. Every gig, everywhere, everyone's like, Brightside. Yeah. Go away. Yeah. It's not my thing. But anyway, let's go back. So
maybe there is a lesson. Maybe there is a tip in there, which is try and do it as we've described in terms of learning a song.
Yeah.
But if you get to the point where literally your hands are going to go into some kind of tendinitis cramp with a song and it's just going to cause you issues, then be happy with faking it. No one's going to tell you off.
I think that's fair enough. Because especially if you're in a situation where, unless you're depping for the Killers, I think you're okay. to kind of set your own standard really on what you're willing to achieve and what you're willing to approximate. And actually, that's another point that we should make, which is we can't all be expected to be capable of doing everything that we listen to. I don't think I'll ever be able to. Well, I will if I wanted to, but I don't think I'll ever really be able to try and do the bit in Sweet Child of Mine. And you know probably what I'm talking about. There's the fancy bit he does between 2 guitars solo, kind of the outro guitar solo where he's doing the harmonic minor stuff, and then it really kicks into the wah wah solo. There's this fancy run he does. I'll never be able to do that, I don't think. Maybe, but I don't think. But I'm fine. I'm happy with approximating stuff, random pentatonic things until I go to that bend up to the E, and I think that's absolutely fine. So I think you said early on a really key point, which is you know your limitations. I think you should keep, I think that's an important step. Keep your limitations in mind. Learn up to your limitations. And if you find that you probably need to spend some more time out of learning songs, practicing other techniques to help increase, how much you can do, then do that. But I don't think the pressure of the song is the right place to do that, because you might end up causing more damage to the performance of it than if you approximate something for the benefit of the performance.
That's true. Do you know what I
mean? If you overstretch yourself to try and get it right, whereas that might sound worse than a simpler approximation that you can do for the benefit of the performance.
That solo's a great example of it. I mean, I've gigged that. I've probably played that song live somewhere between 800 and 900,000 times in my life.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm still working on it and refining it at every
You've worn out 16 different wah pedals, haven't you? Just doing that. When what you should have been saying to yourself is, what would B.B. King do, in that situation?
Exactly. Less is more. Less is more. Slow is smooth is fast.
Slow is smooth is fast. But that's the thing. Like, now we're at the point where we've learnt our chunks. Right. We've approximated what we need to approximate, and we've built everything up. Now you can kind of put the song together, and I think that's kind of, for me, how I would learn the song. But the last thing I wanted to talk about was just about ear training, because I think that is something that not enough guitarists do, and I think that's something which, for me, that supports more areas of my playing than I ever thought. It's something that helps me listen to music, having a good ear and being able to listen for intervals and things like that, and being able to hear chord qualities and stuff like that. It helps me improvise. It helps me to learn things quicker. It helps me to feel like I understand music a little bit more. So one of the things I would recommend people do is, if you're not in a situation where you have to learn a song, then use some time to maybe develop your ear a little bit more. Listen to, like, if you try and get yourself so that you can sing to yourself any kind of interval.
Yeah. Wow.
Like if you want to be able to sing a fifth, you should be able to start with a note and go to a fifth. And there's like little cheats you can do. Like, think of, in my mind, there's lists of songs which I know do certain intervals. Like, for example, the Top Gun theme tune, da, 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 that's a fifth. Da, da. I know that's a perfect fifth. And Happy Birthday, da, 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 that's a major second. So you kind of start recognizing intervals, and if you start learning to internalize all of that musical information, what does an interval, if you hear a chord go from one chord to another, that's a fourth or a fifth. Then if you also understand the major scale and the song's in G, then that fourth is a C, or the fifth is a D major, or if it's gone up a third, your chord's probably a B minor because that's the third. So developing your ear and having some supporting theory knowledge means sometimes you might be able to transcribe part of a song without even, picking up a guitar, and you can be pretty confident with it. So developing an ear, I think, is hugely important. And I think most guitarists, even if you haven't really done that, you probably find you've got a lot of that skill already. You just haven't put like a name and information to it. You know what I mean?
I do. Exactly right. And then once you've got that, applying it to the fingerboard as well, and being really confident, just having that confidence to know and trust that your fingers know how to move to replicate what you're hearing, right? Your fingers know it's a semitone or it's a full tone, and trusting that, not just kind of randomly trying to figure out where it is on the fingerboard, but actually listening and going, well, hold on, that sounds like it's moved up by that much, so that
exactly that. Yeah, being able to recognize it when you hear it is super important. I mean, all the greatest musicians, that's where they are with their playing. They're able to kind of hear things and hear where they're moving to and from, and really understand the nature of what it is they're playing and what it is they're listening to. But you don't have to be like a Jacob Collier or a Stevie Wonder kind of person who just, hears everything and can immediately turn what they hear into a physical, action on their instrument. You don't have to be like that. You just have to be able to, crikey, if you're learning pop songs all day long, you just have to be able to understand, a 1-5-6-4 is pretty much every pop song. Journey, Don't Stop Believing is a 1-5-6-4. E, B, C sharp, A. That's like half of pop history. You should be able to hear when you're listening to a song. I don't know what key it's in, don't really know what tempo, and it's got a weird rhythm, whatever. But I can hear a 1-5-6-4. Do you know what I mean? Those are things that are kind of like your bread and butter, I think, in recognizing, recognizing sounds and recognizing intervals. If you can get to that point, then learning songs will become a lot easier, I think. But it takes practice, I think, week in, week out. Challenge yourself. Like you said, challenge yourself to learn something new every week, even if you don't have to.
Yeah.
And you'll get better at it.
Nice, man. Really good advice. Really good tip. I think we've covered everything. There is one more thing that you mentioned the other day, which is kind of pushing my playing, and I'm trying it. And it's once you've got the song, then learn it in a different key. If you've got the time to do that, because then it puts a lot of that arrangement theory, plug and play mentality, understanding the intervals in the song. It puts it into real practice. Then, if you can challenge yourself to go, well, I've got to play that now in a completely different key. How would I approach it? And if you've done your job properly up until that point, you're not relearning the song from scratch again. You're just transposing it, and all the groundwork has been done by following the steps that you've talked about today. And it becomes easier to then just go, okay, I get it now. Yeah, I can put this into a different key more quickly than I thought I originally could, because I've taken the time to learn it in that way first.
Exactly that. Exactly. I mean, that's a skill, isn't it? We're having to transpose. And that's definitely something that happens regularly for me as a deafing musician working with multiple musicians who I've never really met before.
Yeah.
Having to transpose at the last minute is something that happens quite regularly because of a singer's range. A singer can't help it sometimes if, they can't sing a Jessie J song. I mean, who can, to be fair? It's almost every time I've ever done a Jessie J song, it's been transposed down for whatever reason. But, Michael Jackson stuff as well, maybe. There's no shame in having to change the key of a song for a singer. But you should be able to adapt fairly quickly. And that's why it's good to learn the relative pitches of the things. You don't always have to, if a song goes G, C, D, that's super simple. But if a singer says to you, I want to bring it down a tone and a half, you should be able to very quickly know that that's going to be E, A, and B. Not just from knowing, knowing things musically, but we've got an advantage on guitar and that you can visualize things very easily in terms of, if you're playing a G, I know if I want to move down a tone and a half, I'm going to be playing an E. And if it was G, C, D before, that's a 1, 4, 5. So what's a 1, 4, 5 in E? Well, it would be E, A, and B. So you should be able, if anyone should find it easy to transpose, it should be guitarists, because of the way it's easy for us to move things around without really changing our technique. So that's a skill that we should learn as well. After you've learned the song, make sure you know the structure and intervallic structure well enough that you can transpose it. And then, then the world is your oyster.
And then you're a Jedi. Then you're a true Jedi.
Then you're a true Jedi.
And then do that for 45 songs in the entire set list.
Yeah.
And
you'll never want to play guitar again.
You'll be Rory Harvey.
There you go. Oh dear. Brilliant. Well, I think we've nailed it on the head there, mate, haven't we?
Yeah, I think so. I think some good advice there. And good luck, man. I've got that nervous anticipation for you learning all those songs, but I know you'll do it because you're a wizard.
Well, do you know what? It's just one song. It's just one song that is bothering me.
Which one is it, out of interest?
It's called Little Lion Man by Mumford & Sons.
Oh, God, I don't even know the song.
So it's obviously it's an acoustic thing, and it's an alternate tuning, capoed up on the 5th fret.
Oh, God.
I'm still going to be playing it on my electric, and obviously I'm going to be doing it in a standard tuning. So not only have I got to learn the song and this very awkward rhythm where it's hard to keep in mind where the one is based on what the guitarist is playing, because he's playing quite a standard rhythm, but it's offbeat compared to what you would usually kind of play, which means I'm having to kind of relearn something. But all the chords and stuff, he's playing in an open tuning, so I'm having to try to find ways to get similar sounds from a standard tuning and learn all the arrangement. And it's Mumford & Sons, so I've got to go through the pain of listening to Mumford & Sons every time I want to learn another part of this song.
Man.
It's torturous. It's already been torturous so far, and I'm no further along. And it's like I can't even get the band to drop this from the set because the guy who runs the band and the guy who's getting married are friends, and they went to school with Mumford & Sons.
Oh,
so
wonderful.
it's like this absolutely has to stay in the set, and I've already said to him it's probably not going to be great.
Yeah. Are you sure it has to?
I'll do my
Can you not
best.
pick another one that's easier?
I know.
Oh man, I'm already having palpitations thinking about that. I think that's definitely one where 80% is going to have to be good enough because all the reasons you've described, alternate tunings.
Yeah.
Oh man,
I'm going to be sweating through that one. I'm going to be so happy once it's done. I keep telling myself, it's only 5 minutes. It's only about a 4-minute song.
Yeah.
4 minutes of your life goes past incredibly quickly.
That's what I do as well. That's what I've done. But then there's certain songs that I've learned, I look to go, how long actually is this song? Okay, all right. It's a 3-minute song. You can do this. It's 3 minutes.
Exactly.
3 minutes of your life. And I do the same, man. That's weird that you said that. Exactly the same. Yeah.
Brilliant. All right then, mate. Well, look, have a cracking week. Good to chat to you again, as always.
Pleasure.
Good luck learning songs, if you're learning any songs.
Thank you.
Remember, slow it. Excuse me. Remember, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. That is what I think.
Great. That's the gospel. Well done. All right. Fantastic.
Nice one.
Speak to you soon, buddy.
Speak to you soon, mate. I'll see you on the other side in a couple of weeks' time.
Yeah, cheers, Matt.
All the best, mate.
Bye.
Another really interesting conversation this week, all about learning songs. What about you? How do you feel about learning songs? What's your process? Come and tell us what you think on our social media pages, and we'll for sure give you a shout out on the show. Anyway, that's enough from us. I hope to see you on the next podcast in a couple of weeks' time. Take care. Goodbye.